My name is Neil Jarvis. I'm the Director of Information Technology, Information Security and Digital Transformation at Aston Martin. And I'm the chairperson and moderator for this call. I'm asking everybody to remain on mute during the presentations, and any questions you have, please post them onto the chat. I will field them to Matt as and when is an appropriate point in the conversation, or some we will save till the end. A little disclaimer on this, Aston Martin are not Rapid7 customers, so I'm not supporting or detracting of anything that Matt has to say. So I'm here as an independent moderator and generally to interject as appropriate. So if I hand over to Matt, if you want to introduce yourself and start with the session. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you, Neil. And I'm a big fan of your products. Unfortunately, I'm also not a customer of Aston Martin, so never mind. There we go. So thank you for joining today. This is similar to the talk that we did a couple of weeks ago at the event at Great George Street, which was a fantastic event, and it was good to see some of your colleagues there. And it was interesting to see how, despite there being quite a few security operations, security orchestration, automation and response solutions on the market, it still is less than 1% of UK enterprises that have actually deployed this or are looking at this. So it was quite a timely discussion, and it seemed to have some really good discussion. So I hope it does the same for you today. So who am I? Matt Ryder. I'm the Director of International Engineering. I'm the beardy, ugly bloke in the middle. At Rapid7, I've been at Rapid7 5 years since we started up in Europe. 6 years before that, running services at Sophos, and before that was in normal IT, as opposed to the exciting world of cybersecurity. You're welcome to connect to me as well on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter. But I didn't take the normal route into cybersecurity, if there is such a thing as a normal route, 20 years ago, when there wasn't such a thing as a cybersecurity degree. So we're going to try and make this interactive. I'm a big fan of hearing what the audience thinks. I don't pretend to have all of the answers at all, and I very much like to do these sorts of things to test what we as a security vendor think are the problems that you're trying to address, and the ways that we can address those together. So I very much like to make it interactive. So I've prepared a Slido. If you're not familiar with Slido, it's kind of an online poll. And the first question is going to be, which of these jobs on my way to cybersecurity haven't I done? Okay, so 3 of those I did do, 3 of those I didn't. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'm sorry if you came here thinking you could have a snooze for 45 minutes, is I'm going to ask you to go to www.sly.do or slido.com, either works, and you will see a page where you put in the event ID. The event ID is SOAR, Security Orchestration, Automation and Response. And I'm going to activate the first question. So you should see questions and polls. Sorry, activate the first poll. So if you go to the poll screen, you can vote on which of those jobs you think I haven't done. And this is a fun one to start with. We'll have slightly more serious ones later. Let's see if this works. It's always good to do a live demo. You see, I'm not going to show a product demo, but I do like to still give myself a heart attack. So that's 2 people have voted. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to vote? Oh, there we go. This is quite different results from London 3 weeks ago, for which I'm grateful. Anyone else? 4 people have managed to get to slido.com on the left-hand side. Oh, it's neck and neck. It's amazing. We've all got very conditioned to watching results come in on the screen, haven't we? Okay, well, thank you for those. The technology is working, I think, so we'll halt there. If you're interested in the answer, actually, mobile hairdresser is the job I haven't done. I did spend a lovely year destroying tax records at Her Majesty's pleasure, legally, I'll add, where one of the documents I came across was actually the tax return for the Muppet Show from 1979. So I saw how much Jim Henson got paid for puppeting, which was an interesting thing. Anyway, perfect. Thank you very much for that, and we'll come back and use that in anger later. So why are we here? So we all see big challenges in today's ever-evolving digital landscape. And the reasons behind that, I don't think will come as a surprise to anyone here. There's too much to do, frequently with less and less resources, with an ever-expanding network, if you can even call it that. Gone are the days of a nice clean network perimeter and network access controls. It's now your CEO or CFO on their iPad, working from Starbucks that you've got to support. Operational silos. So, security is obviously working always in partnership with not just IT and DevOps, but also with the business, all with our own KPIs and tools and management change and everything else. Not enough time, obviously. We do like to get home now and again for the odd weekend, and certainly not enough talent. And we'll delve into each of those problems a little bit more. But let's go back to Slido for the first question. So you all work for fairly large organizations, I would suggest. The statistics I'm about to show you are for any company that has got 1,000 or more users. That was the definition of enterprise. So if I can just ask you to go back to Slido, have a look at the currently open poll, and just tell me how many security products that you know of you use today to secure your network. So add up, all the firewalls, IDS, IPS, SIM systems, detection response, threat intel, vulnerability management, AV firewalls, DAST, SAST, RASP, IAST, all of those great acronyms. Let's just have a look and see how many it is. Display poll, come on. There's a good question. Thank you. Let me go back to the poll. So, how many security products do you use to secure your network? No one's voted yet. It should be working. Actually, I'm seeing the results come in on my other machine. Most people are saying 11 to 30 at the moment. Let's try refreshing this. Some people saying 31 to 60. No one's saying more than 60. Apologies, we had to have a technical issue at some point. No, let's give up on that for this one. But I can see that it's over 50% of you have said 11 to 30, which is great feedback. So thank you for that. The actual finding was that this was a 2016 paper on defense in depth. Was that there's 75 security products on average used to secure a network, which obviously gives you a massively fragmented ecosystem with probably largely unintegrated tools and systems. Another fact that I saw was that £115 per user was spent on security in 2016, and that will probably double by 2020. So we know it's a huge cost. So each of these fragmented technologies that you probably bought for a very specific need from the business or from a direct response to a breach or a threat, these now compete for your team's attentions. So each of these would be outputting tens, hundreds, even thousands of alerts a day. So security teams, are forced to take on increased workloads and just find more time in the day to achieve the fundamental tasks, or face falling behind not only the needs of the team, but also the attackers. Which, let's not forget, the whole thing we're trying to do is stop the bad stuff happening. And as I said, the security team, we have to partner. We can't solve this problem alone, and we need to work across certainly IT and DevOps. And this is complicated because it's human nature to work in silos. Everyone's focused on excellence moving forwards, but the communication, the collaboration that is needed just doesn't get done. And that, can lead to repetitive manual processes being executed over and over again. Things like configuring a firewall, patching a system, deprovisioning users. Now, with repetitions of manual tasks, the error percentage massively increases. That's just human psychology. You do anything, and it gets boring and mundane, and you lack the focus and attention. And the time that we're doing to do that is not only time where the errors creep in, but it's time that we'd like to work on more strategic things rather than just dealing with these repetitive tasks. You know, security, we all want to be in that position where we're a business partner to the business, and we're adding genuine value, and we're driving the change that makes our businesses successful. So often we're just trying to, you know, keep up or keep not too far behind. Oh, I did a lovely little build here, security of alerts coming in, and the guy actually at the top drops dead. Sorry, I always forget my attempt at humor. And with more systems firing more alerts to detect more attacks and more attack types, you know, we need to keep up with this. So, you know, we should grow our security teams as well. I was going to put a questionnaire in here as how many of you have got, you know, more budget and are going to double your team, or have got enough people. But that would have been obviously just a slightly cynical, rhetorical question. The cybersecurity unemployment rate is hovering around 0% industry-wide, and hiring is just not a feasible option for many teams. There's, I won't do a quiz for this, but there's a report that came out by Frost and Sullivan recently that said, you know, how many people, or forecast how many people will be short worldwide by 2022. In London, I asked for people to shout out. Obviously, I can't ask you to shout out. Have a little shout out at home. But basically, it's 1.8 million people by 2022 that we will be short globally. Now, the number in the UK, and again, numbers vary, but it's around 220,000 by 2022. So in just 3 years, we're going to be almost 250,000 people short in cybersecurity. Less than 0.7% of UK graduates are coming out with degrees that would be relevant to cybersecurity. Obviously, you know, that means we can take people from adjacent businesses, but, you know, these aren't people that are necessarily going into university looking to come and work for cybersecurity. So we know this. I'm preaching to the converted, but teams are overwhelmed. There's not enough people, and there's not enough people with the right skills. So time and resources are limited. So there's no luxury of time to sort of sit back and be strategic, nor can people afford to make mistakes because they're just being overwhelmed with data and alerts. They still have to be accurate. So speed and accuracy have to be our watchwords today for cybersecurity teams. And that's where I believe security orchestration and automation can help. So once your teams and tools are connected, you can then automate the processes needed to get the work done the right way in the right amount of time, and importantly, error-free. So let me take a step back at this point and talk a little bit more by what SOAR is. So SOAR's been around for a few years as a term. I think it's originally defined, the top one, Gartner defined it as security operations, analytics, and reporting. That's now, actually it's changed again, it's security orchestration, automation, and response. But we don't want to throw away a good acronym, so it's still the same acronym. But you can see there how even in the few years that the offerings have been out there, how it's matured. So now it's more of an end-to-end response than really just, you know, analytics and reporting so that we as humans can take the response. It really is now end-to-end. And it streamlines those series of repetitive manual tasks into cohesive and automated workflows. So it becomes more efficient, less prone to human error. With increased efficiency, you can make better decisions. You're, you know, overstretched, but extremely talented and, you know, expensive security teams can focus on the important things where that human decision is needed, rather than the, you know, triaging every phishing email that comes in. And that obviously means that you have happier security staff. They're focusing on the stuff that's interesting, that's developing their skills, more strategic work. So their job satisfaction is boosted, and hopefully, you know, we all retain those good staff. So if we break it down, the orchestration piece, what we're talking about here is we're talking about the ability to connect all of those different tools, those 75 tools that you use in an environment to perform a set of tasks. So everyone, I don't doubt, is doing orchestration today, but at the moment it's probably using humans as the glue. It's, you know, basically running a standard investigation process in one tool, copying, you know, dumping that data in Excel and copying it into another tool or a CSV, and, you know, basically that is orchestration. But with humans, expensive, easily bored humans as the glue. then that's inefficient. So to be really able to scale, you need to automate these tasks. So when you automate a task like a log search or an IP domain lookup, or creating tickets in your various ticketing tools, then these repetitive, tedious tasks become more efficient. And then when they're working hand in hand, orchestration and automation, then you accelerate security operations. And you help your security teams do more by focusing on analysis and response instead of manually collecting data and other low-value tasks. Consider the birds. I think I was a Monty Python misquoting the Bible, but it came to me in a fit of panic last night. But Dr. Ian Levy of the National Cybersecurity Centre, he had a fantastic analogy for this that I've completely stolen wholesale. So he talks about how air travel today is safer than it's ever been, despite there being more planes in the sky, more passengers. You know, it's grown exponentially since the 1950s and 60s. And yet it's safer. It's the safest form of travel. And there's two kind of ways that he talks about how this has come about. One is you build better, safer planes. You know, we can build better, more secure code. It's the same thing. You know, if there's less holes and vulnerabilities for people to exploit, it's safer. But the other thing he talks about is, you know, consider the pilot. So you're on a flight to Singapore. That's a 12-hour flight. You know, roll it back 20, 30 years. That pilot, the co-pilot, the engineer, you know, had to have a big team. Those people were flying the plane the entire time. You know, whether they wanted to have a break, have some food, whatever, you know, someone had to be flying the plane the whole time. And that's tiring. And a lot of the time it was extremely boring. And that's where error creeps in. Whereas now with, you know, the modern automation of you know, things like the Dreamliner, you've basically got to a point where the pilots do the tricky bits, the takeoff and landing, where you need to have, you know, very accurate judgment and lots of experience. And they're on call for the rest of the flight in case of bad weather or turbulence. But the rest of the time they get to relax, they get to do proactive strategic stuff, they get to rest themselves, their job satisfaction's higher, and their focus and concentration when it is needed is much, much higher. And I really like that analogy because I think exactly the same thing. You know, our security staff are extremely intelligent, clever people, and we want them to be doing the stuff where, you know, only they can do, and they add huge value. I'll pause there, actually, Neil, if there's any questions, because that's kind of a bit of a dash through.
So as of yet, we've not had any questions on the chat. I don't know if anybody wants to raise anything at this point. So I think either you've explained everything so well that no one has any questions, that everybody's asleep, or everybody's too frightened to ask any questions.
Everyone's booked a massage and then put this in their calendar. But that's good. I'm glad. Hopefully it's the former. Hopefully it's the former. Thank you. Okay. One thing I do want to say is a SOAR. I love how we get ourselves into acronyms. So no, although, and I caveat that a little bit because there are SOAR capabilities. There is automation and some orchestration capabilities that's being introduced into SIMs, which makes sense when you think of, you know, what a SIM does, and that, you know, a SOAR is basically an operating system for your SOC that other, you know, applications can stand on. Having said that, I'm conscious that if a SIM is introducing SOAR, it's probably very good at orchestrating that SIM, but will it have the extensibility to talk to every tool? Because that's what you need. You need it to be able to talk to every tool, put in all the data, and for that to, you know, going forwards to future-proof and talk to new tools as they come out. If you think about it, EPO, McAfee EPO, has had orchestration and automation there for its own suite for a long time. You've been able to quarantine machines using EPO, but can it do something outside of that? No. So yeah, I can imagine that over the next 2 years, we'll see more SIMs introduce capabilities, but equally, do you want to buy, you know, a full SIM just to get the SOAR piece? Arguably, maybe not. So anyway, I just thought I'd cover that off because that was a question that had come up before. So that's all very well from theory, but I wanted to give you just a little bit of kind of best practice as we've observed it from our customers that have implemented automation and orchestration. So because it's another thing that, you know, is suddenly on your plate. It's another technology. It's where does this fit in your, I need more firewalls. I've got to update our VM. I need to move to a different, you know, router provider, whatever. So I'm going to talk through this, and I'm going to try and help you ask the questions to understand, you know, when and if it's the right time for you guys to do it. So before you look at the solution, you need to define your pain points. So think through, you know, does your security team get too many alerts to handle effectively? Is there just stuff that's going unnoticed? Are you always prioritizing and you know there's just kind of this backlog that you daren't look at in case there's something in there, but it's not immediate, it's not urgent? Are people burning out? Are people moving on quickly? Or are people, you know, not necessarily coming into the organization? Are you spending a lot of time just gathering the information and trying to analyze it to work out where your priorities are? Do you spend, you know, a lot of time basically being reactive and not being the partner you want to be for the business? If you can answer yes to most of those, then, you know, there's an option there. You've probably got some processes, some workflows that would benefit from some level of automation. And then you want to define your most common use cases. So some companies, for instance, let me have a think. Some of them will see immediate benefits by handling, automating the handling of malware, because that's their biggest problem. Whereas other people I've seen have done threat hunting or data enrichment tasks through orchestration, just because you know, it's better to able to manage an increasing volume of threats. Some people do deprovisioning or provisioning because that's an area where they're getting a lot of error. And obviously, as we all know, hackers love credentials. So the quicker you can close down access of someone leaving the organization, the better. So basically, have a look at what are you doing today that is very repetitive, very manual, that you could maybe make into a workflow, an automated workflow. So this is going to be our last little poll this morning, or this afternoon rather. If you just step back to the Slido page, there's a question: which workflows might be good candidates, good use cases for you to automate? Now, this builds a word cloud, so if you can do them as one-word answers, it's way more effective. Otherwise, it just so, and you can also answer multiple times. So this I find fascinating because this is, you know, I think I know what we're trying to solve, and I think I know what the problems are, but it's a long time since I worked in IT properly, not for a vendor. So I'm very interested to see what things you might think we could automate. Let's have a look. So hopefully everyone can see the instances in there. Phishing, assisted patching. Oh, that came through as one word. Okay. SOCs, that's a good one. That someone said. NAC, yeah, NAC is a good one. I mean, NAC is all rules-based, isn't it? And interacting with various different tools, that's a good one. Phishing again. NAC again. It's all the unsexy stuff, basically. That's what we're saying, isn't it? Incidents, users. By users, I guess it could be provisioning or deprovisioning of users. Threat hunting. Yeah. I'll let you keep putting into that because you can vote multiple times. Some of the ones we had in London, oh, okay, yeah, reporting was another good one that we had in London. We'll come back to that. Quarantining. Okay, we'll come back to that in the Q&A. So keep populating that as we go forwards. Thank you for that. And these are some of the most common ones that our customers do. So yeah, email phishing investigations is a key one. And that's an example I'm going to show you because I always like to give you something concrete rather than just deal in theory. Threat hunting is a big one. Obviously, you know, a big task for SOCs. Automated patching, we know, using Big Fix or SCCM, it's pretty clear that we want to patch the majority of things the majority of the time. And obviously, good automation will give you exceptions. Malware investigation, security alert, data enrichment, yeah, all of these are good things.
We do have a question from Brian with respect to, is this an alternative to IBM Resilient? I don't know if this is something you want to pick up now or keep until the end.
Yes, yeah. It's IBM Resilient is built on QRadar. That is their SOAR. There's a whole bunch of them. You may well know of things like Phantom, for instance. Ours is Command Inside Connect. There's probably about 12 to 16 out there at the moment, despite the fairly young nature of this as a solution type. Thanks for that. So step 3, we've understood what your common use cases are, what your pain, the things you could do, but then you need to understand your people, processes, and tools. And the reason I say that is because, as I keep going on about, we work in silos, but we can't work in silos. So we need to understand, what other teams need, what are the things that IT and DevOps spend a lot of time doing from a manual, time-consuming process. And how can we interface with them? So, my top tip is always, do something like this, grab all the stakeholders from across the organization, get them in a room, and something like this, although maybe not with the traffic light graphics, you want to draw out your most common, repetitive, time-consuming processes that involve lots of human steps between pushing and pulling information between different systems or different teams. And then you basically, you build out a blueprint for your first sets of workflows. It's not rocket science. But you need to have the tool that can actually then take that workflow and actually implement it. And then another part is to understand your critical systems. This is a screenshot of my Okta login. You'll see I've got 4 new apps this week. I've deleted which apps we have for security, but there's 4 new apps that I've had rolled out to my Okta this week. It's an ever-expanding ecosystem of security, IT, DevOps systems. And it's important to maintain a list of all of those, the integration points between them, to build out your workflow, and to choose obviously a tool that can integrate with all of those things. So that's step 4, is choose a solution or build a solution. And I am going to, you don't have to buy one, you can build your own. And I'm trying to be absolutely agnostic here. And we'll talk about whether you should build or buy in a minute. But you want to choose a solution that shows both an immediate ROI, but also will be extensible going forwards, that is going to interact with all of the solutions that you may be considering to implement going forwards. So that's important as well. So there's some criteria. You want it to work with your technology stack. You want it to be extensible. You want to have rapid time to value. You want human decision points. There's probably 3 use cases where you want humans to interact, either for error checking, either because you're touching an asset that needs a human decision as to whether it's allowed, or there's a stop go. Flexibility and control, dashboarding, reporting, the ability to do it both in a build a workflow in a visual way, but then also go more granular and edit the code that workflow represents. That's important. Predictable costs, pace of innovation, and if you've got a team of Python developers, fantastic. But if not, then is the tool going to match your skill set? That's great theory, Matt, but give us a real world example. As I said, I hate just giving theory. I wasn't a great student, so I was told off in my physics class for asking why too much. So that probably gives you an insight. So I'm going to take what is one of the top things that we see people doing. Maybe because of our Metasploit framework, we get a lot of people coming to us wanting to orchestrate phishing investigation and response. But I don't think that there's any one of you that doesn't want to quarantine a true positive phishing email if need be, or indeed to spend too long to get to that and understand that. Yet phishing investigations is incredibly boring and laborious. So this was a real life example, but different processes from different organizations, but it's going to be similar. But basically, all organizations will encourage employees to report, send me an email to phishing@rapid7.com, but what happens when that email comes in? So you need to analyze those URLs and the attachments. They need to be detonated to check for malware. If it's a true positive, you then want to delete that across all users' inboxes. But it's also the sort of thing that as soon as you've got something more interesting or higher priority, this can sit and be, not looked at for hours. And even if you start straight away, it can still take 75 minutes to complete that task from start to finish. But this is something that can be easily automated while the team works on the rest of investigation response. So I'm going to show you screenshots, but it's a fairly discrete logo in the top left corner, hopefully. And the only reason I do this is because actually I don't only end up copying this in Visio or something anyway to show it to you. So what we've done here is you can create the APIs to speak to the different tools. We've actually created all of those, and we have these building blocks. But we're going to go through a real life example of building this phishing automation as a workflow, and you'll see hopefully how easy this is. Obviously, this has been done once we've already sat in a room and everyone has agreed, all the stakeholders have agreed, what the process should be. Does that mirror today's process? What would we change? And does it link into everything else? And does it give us enough control and reporting over this? So basically, we're going to start off just looking at our Gmail inbox and just check our phishing@whatever.com for any unread emails received. Give it an admin logon so it can log in. And this is where basically we can trigger or write the algorithm for the triggers. So we're going to have it coming into encom.com, anything unread. And what we're going to do is our API will actually pass that email and create an artifact, as we call it. It will output these 8-9 artifacts based on what's in that email. And then those just become objects that you can basically move around. So you could do it with any object-oriented coding. So we've got that now. We've stripped out all those various attributes of that email, which we can now leverage those and call those as we need to. So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to create an artifact that actually summarizes that email. So it's going to basically give us where the email came in from, what the subject was, what the body was, and then it's going to put in safe links. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we've got a plugin that will basically pass any body of text and pull out the URLs. So literally dragging and dropping this, name the action, put some text, tell it what to repeat, tell it what to do if it fails. And again, here we're going to have an output, which is the URLs. And I'm looking here just in the email received body. So again, because I've split out each of those things, those attributes as an artifact, I can query any of them as an object, and I'm passing the body of the email for a URL or any URLs. And then I'm going to go into a loop, because obviously for every one of those URLs, I want to go and test it. So I step over and do a little blue diamond, which basically takes me to a different workflow. And what I'm going to do here, and I jumped through this one a little bit rather than building it step by step, but I'm basically going to go out to VirusTotal, and I'm going to get VirusTotal to scan URLs. I'm then going to get that report back, and I'm going to create an artifact, which I'm going to call VirusTotal URL report. But basically, that's doing the hard work for me because I've already written that API to work with them. So that's the URL analysis loop, which I can then, expand out if I wanted to. I'm then going to do exactly the same for any attachments. So it's going to take any attachments, it's going to make those into artifacts, and basically I'm going to detonate those in sandbox of my choice. Now, it's at this point where I've got the email summary, I've got all of the URLs and a result of whether it was malicious or not when that URL was visited, what was found. I also know all of the attachments, what happened when we detonated them, are they malicious? And this is where I could take an automated decision, or I could pause and wait for a human interaction, which is what I've decided to do here. So as you can see there, I selected human decision. It says this pauses the workflow, and basically this is where they are presented with in the reporting of choice or the dashboard, whatever you want. Different tools do it different ways. Whether this is a clear phishing email, we think press here for delete, or this is a false positive, no further actions taken. And that's pretty much it. And then you can build that out even further and actually then go through, look for other emails with the same headers or whatever you want to actually delete those automatically from other inboxes. You can also integrate with something like Slack or some other chatbot. So, you can have a security team with a phishing Slack channel that will just pop up saying, hey, emails deleted across all inboxes, or failed to clean up, or, false positive, okayed, whatever you want. And again, use the Gmail API or Outlook API or whatever you want to go back and delete those. So a fairly robust workflow, not a massively complex workflow, but time consuming. That's the steps that take 75 minutes for this customer per email. And yet now, all of that is done. You can create a ticket, you can fire off something in ServiceNow or Jira or whatever you want. Now that should only take 2 minutes start to finish. And that 2 minutes is pretty much, most of that is waiting for the Slack channel to pop up, then getting a human to log on and make the decision whether to block it or not. Now, you multiply that by 8 phishing attempts a day for some organizations, obviously it goes up and down, and you're starting to save significant time. And yeah, people can get quicker, and I know people have built various little tools to help do some of that analysis, but the fact is you can then apply this and you can look at a dashboard and you can see quite quickly, hey, this is run 8 times today, so we've saved 8 times 73 minutes. And you very quickly build that value case for you to take back to your exec and to start building out other workflows. Plus you free up, a member of your staff to go and focus on something.
So just to paraphrase Fleur's question, it sounds like you asked about the potential priorities for budget and when was the right time to implement it. So this is your business case, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, and what I would say is start with...
Interesting. 20 on there at one point now, so.
Can everyone not call?
Yeah, it's not that much stuff maybe.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so the good thing is you could start literally just with this, like this customer did, and you could say, hey, let's just run this one workflow and tweak it and get it working really well, and then build out other workflows as and when they go live. So it doesn't need to be a big bang approach. You literally pick the low-hanging fruit. So pick the stuff that, ask your team, what's the one thing you'd like to just give up because it's mind-numbing and boring, and you add no value, and I'm sure they'll come up with a. So, as to when to do it, it's tricky. I mean, I know there's always going to be things that are at the top of your list for, the next quarter or the next year to deliver on. What I would say is, on one hand, you do it as soon as you can, because obviously a big part of the benefit of this and the value is freeing up resource. So to a certain extent, the quicker you can automate the appropriate stuff, there's some things you just won't be able to automate straight away or ever, but the quicker you can automate what you can, the quicker you free up staff, resources, money to actually go and do the other projects you really, really want to do that are probably more interesting projects for staff anyway. Now, having said that, obviously, it's still something you need to assess and look at and decide whether to build or buy and POC and all that sort of thing and procure. So I appreciate, it may not be something you'll go and do tomorrow, but equally, it's something you could certainly look at in 2019 if you think it's going to be useful. Hopefully that answers the question. So just in conclusion on that piece, and there is a tool to calculate your ROI if you want it, to help you put that business case together. From here, we went from 75 minutes to 2 minutes, and we've seen across all of our customers, on average, an 83% reduction in time. And that's based on the feedback they've given us in the ROI calculator. So, that is huge from that point of view. But you've got to get the basics right. So you've got to have the right tools to start with. It's like anything else. It's like, the best AI or machine learning in the world only works with good data. You can have the best algorithm, the most advanced algorithms, but rubbish in, rubbish out. So again, it will only automate the tools you've got, and it will only follow the processes you've already defined. So you need the right tools, the right people, and the right process to start with. What you're doing is you're freeing up the manual side of it and ensuring that it's error-free. There's not that human error creeping in. So, right process, you need to clear goals, they need to address scale, be achievable, and then you can soar. And I was going to put a cheesy picture of an eagle soaring, but it was too cheesy. But yeah, get the basics right, and then I would say then's a good time to look at orchestration automation. And then build or buy. So it's the same questions for either. If you have the resources to build custom automation, do you need a pre-built security automation tool? So as I said, if you've got a bunch of programming savvy security employees or dev resources available to you, you could do this in-house or with consultants. So, scope out, are you orchestrating, automating a simple process or an entire system? How long will it take? How many programmers do you need? Do you need to hire anyone? What tools do you have, and do they have flexible APIs? Because obviously, everything will need an API that it can hook into in order to control it. What languages are those built in, and what automation languages play nicely with your current tools? And then based on that scope and resources environment, how much will it cost? And that gives you, your idea of, well, is that enough of a budget to go and buy something pre-built, or is actually we better off building our own? So, and obviously consider maintenance in that as with any in-house tool. But certainly, building your own automation, if you've got the staff to do it, is a really sensible thing to do. I would also say start small. So, as I said, pick a small or pick a simple low-hanging fruit intrusion detection, NAC. There's all sorts of things that came up there. Vulnerability management's a good one. Go for the quick wins to show that ROI and to work out if it works for you. Maybe that actually it doesn't save you as much time as you thought. But go for that quick win to understand, but then plan to expand, plan to then pick up what's going to be the phase 2 in terms of automation, and that would be my suggestion as to how and when to do it. Apologies if you're easily offended. We have a Get Stuff Done webcast series, which will give you more information on orchestration and automation, and you can try the product obviously, and there's the ROI calculator. But that was all that I wanted to present today. Hopefully you understand a bit more about orchestration, automation, response as a tool. And hopefully the illustration was agnostic enough that it gave you a good visual of how you can do this and how easy it is to do this. And hopefully you've got some thoughts already about whether this is something you want to look at or not. And I would absolutely say, go out and see that everything's out there always. I'm trying to be as agnostic as possible. So thank you for your time. Neil, thank you for your excellent moderation and being nice to me and not interrupting too much. I mean, anything that you wanted to add, Neil? Anything, something you've looked at or this addresses your concerns?
No, I think this has been a very interesting session. I think people have heard me speak before about aggregation of data and automation, and it's something that we know we've needed to have done for a long time. And if you've got Python programmers, then it's really easy. And I think in my past experience of pen testing, we did a lot of writing little scripts and code to make things quicker and easier. And some of that was even pre the existence of Metasploit.
Wow.
I think it's been a very interesting session. Does anybody on the line have any questions they want to ask of Matt? You will need to type them into the chat, I'm afraid. Okay, well, Alexi assured me that he was here and not asleep.
That's good.
But I think you've probably answered anybody's questions. They've got your LinkedIn, so they can find you now. Yep. So that's on the end. I think we've got your Twitter ID, and if necessary, I think we can share your email address. So if no one has any other questions, and if Matt has nothing to add, just to finish off the session, I suggest we close there and let everyone get on with their thinking about how they can automate their life and make things easier. And if not, have a great couple of weeks and hopefully some time off and not too many incidents.
That'd be nice. Excellent. No, I've got nothing to add, so thank you very much.
Okay, so thanks everyone. At that case, we'll close the session there. So thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you all in person sometime early next year. And if not, have you on another call sometime in the near future as well. Okay, thank you very much.